The video you're watching will concern a creative work that is available on the internet that doesn't seem to have any rights attached to it. So I'm going to go into property rights first. You can pause the video because this is going to be the boring part, but I have to do it at the beginning. There's a bunch of information below about specifics about the most mysterious song in the internet. I'm going to get to them last, or not. Main types of property law concern intellectual and real property. Intellectual property is the most important one for this video, but real property is also sort of involved in this. The cassette tape is real property. The music recording on it is intellectual. I'm not destroying your real property if I take a degausser to your tape recording and get rid of the recording you made of my music that I want power over. That's an example. Now, these intellectual and real property rights and laws, this is the major classes, contain subsets that are rights and or laws. The rights of, or the rights acquired of, possession, control, exclusion, disposition, that's the right to transfer ownership, derive income, and also that transfer thing can include partial or renting or leasing. An individual may acquire new resources and new property from an unowned, unclaimed property. Very important here. By mixing some labor into it, or in some cases, doing nothing other than acquiring it. If you are on a hunk of dirt that isn't claimed by anybody to have ownership rights, and or it's an entity that is overtly excluded that they have rights of some kind, you can abuse that land. If you find gold on a beach, you can legitimately say that it was washed down from a river or from the ocean, and until somebody can say where it came from, it was found on the beach, you can just take it. Same thing with a seashell or a pearl in an oyster. If you own a hunk of dirt and has a river going through it and you pan gold, the person upriver of you does not have a right to claim that gold, even though it very likely came from their property. It's a natural process that it was moved to your property, and unless they make an overt claim and start running their claim, they can't claim anything about your claim. I'm claiming. That's enough claiming. Okay, now, you could domesticate a wild animal. You could plow a field and sell the crop, but you can't sell the property just because you plowed it, unless no one's made a claim for a period of time, and then it just falls into your hands. Carving a stone. The stone doesn't belong to you, but the work you added to it does. But then again, if you find a diamond or a ruby on the shoreline and nobody can prove where it came from, they can't claim you stole it from them. So simply possession, literally that 9/10 of the law thing, kick in. There are some restrictions on this, however. You may not in any way harm anyone by exercising your property right. If you own a hunk of dirt with a river going through it and you block it off and prevent people downriver from getting water and then demand they pay you money, that isn't necessarily going to fly. Not because it's illegal or immoral or dangerous, but because they're going to beat the crap out of you and make it to where you don't do it anymore. Don't do that. Ever. However, if you say, I'm going to build a reservoir because we're having trouble with droughts. If you're going to take my water during the drought period, I'm going to charge you. I'm going to turn part of the river into a place that I can store water. And then I'm going to share it with you, but you're going to have to pay me for it. I don't know of anybody that would complain about that. That's not you being a ghoul. That's you trying to keep people from dying. But that becomes water that is now your resource because you put the effort into making a reservoir. See? And that might involve going way upriver, finding a canyon, and damming it up at each end and flooding it to the max height long before it goes downriver to them, and then putting the effort into putting in a channel to send it downriver. But it doesn't require necessarily you do anything to it. Simply acquiring something and reselling it. If it's abandoned or not, depending on the rules. From 1983 to 1989, a keyboard, as we usually call them these days, back then they were called specifically synthesizers, came with a preset on ROM 2, Bank B, Patch 4, and it was lead synth number 5. It was on a Yamaha DX7, And if you're not aware of it, musicians or keyboardists come in a couple of varieties. And I personally witnessed this. If you could create a new sound for a synthesizer that could be encoded into it by using the presets and then altering them, you could sell your sound files back to companies like Korg and Yamaha, which is probably how the sound file was created. So it is derived from somebody doing the work beforehand. However, the reason you do that and the reason they'll pay you is because it becomes a preset you hit, so that when you get on stage with the thing dead to rights, no power to it, the little battery for remembering your presets is dead, you can plug it in, hit a couple of buttons, you got a preset, it sounds good enough, and you can immediately start playing and earn your living as a keyboardist. That keyboard came out in 1983, and by 1984, there were second-hand versions of them on the net, or whatever it was at the time, the equivalent. They were available. It was much more widely available in 1984 than it was in 1983. And it wasn't just something you found with somebody with a lot of money or at a place to record at. This was literally available. Being able to just switch it on and immediately bang out music. That's worth the money. This was not a cheap keyboard. The DX7 sound was employed for that specific sound, and it matches so closely that you can almost match the wave shapes perfectly. In fact, with a little diddling, you can use it to subtract that sound from the recording without doing any alterations. This was employed towards the end in the Most Mysterious Song on the Internet. Now, that was first aired on NDR broadcast in Germany. This is understood because NDR and a couple of other places had a high-frequency audio bias in it. Normally, you would think it would be used for some specific reason, but it just happened to be there. And that was the period of time it was out, 1984 approximately. Before that and after that, but 1984 was in that range. Now, in Wilhelmshaven, or Wilhelmshaven, I say it one way instead of the other because it's funny, a kid named Darius was listening to the broadcast, heard the song, and hit record. And he had what he is referring to as a Technics tape deck. And he said it was from 1984. Now, if you're not aware of it, back in that time, that meant at one point or another he flipped it over and found out the thing was made or came out of the factory in 1984. It could have been after 1984. It could have also been vintage of 1984, but made partially in 1983. But the thing was stamped 1984 on the body. Technics tape decks, whether they are single or double decks that are from that era that would be stamped that number, are Technics RSB or RSM series tape decks. They can be double or single. They can have all sorts of extra features. A person doing recording off the radio, almost invariably, if they were trying to do it good enough, they would use a secondhand tape deck or just the cheapest one that was really good. If you're doing audio recording, you want one right off the factory floor. You want to check the azimuth on your heads a little bit and then never decode it again and be able to sit there and wait for the radio announcer to stop talking, hit record. One touch record. And then when he's done, you hit stop and pause the video entirely. You need to be able to hit a button and record. But you want the cheapest deck out of a series of decks, which all have the same circuit board and casing, by the way, they all do, that had the best quality recording for the tape you could buy that was cheap and available. Slightly second tier. The tape that was inside of the deck was a BASF branded 90-minute, 70 microsecond EQ, chrome bias, IEC2, chrome dioxide 2, black cassette that was originally first sold in the format we see on screen, the sticker and the body type, in 1982, and last sold as old stock till Christmas around 1984 and maybe 1985. This severely narrows the range because, again, the synthesizer that would have been used to make the recording that was made before and then put up on the radio was either by a slightly high-end band in 1983, that's the earliest, or 1984 if it was secondhand and they were a lower-tier band. Could have been a low-tier band at a higher-end or mid-range recording studio that has equipment you can use and borrow and rent. And this was done as a demo, given to the radio station. It was probably on a tape, played maybe once or twice, and tossed. Because it was an incidental or ephemeral recording to playback, they may not have even noted it, and they may have said, We don't have any information on it, but here's the name of the band. And then Darius hit the record long after that, which is sad. And at the end of the recording, if the person was trying to be doing due diligence, he would have said the band name and the name of the song, and we'd know the answer right now. And again, this is caused by DJs being told by record industry geeks to always talk over the beginning and the ending of the recording. And I want to point out a couple of punk bands that put out recordings that had really long intros and really long outros that were labeled "fuck with the DJ" or "fuck the DJ" because they got tired of it too, because they tried to do the same kind of recording you and I did, where we hit the record button. I'm totally not guilty of copying that floppy. Not a pirate. I'm an iron pyrite. Next. This was 1984 when this was done. This is the most likely time. There's a narrow range. That's the one that's most likely. Not the only one. And again, someone could have created a sound file and made a synthesizer if they were a synth geek and done this long before 1983, but that would only go back to 1982. So the earliest is 1982 and the latest is 1984 or 85, but the most likely one is 84. Technics tape decks that were stamped as made in 1984, not a short list, a very exhaustive one was consulted for this to double check what he was referring to. Unless Darius tells us the exact make and model, all we have is it was stamped 1984. That's good enough. He got a brand new Christmas time cassette deck and recorded. It could have been Christmas time. It could have been after his birthday. Find out his birthday. I don't know. He could have got it from a friend, and it might have been something that they got for their birthday and they wanted to get rid of because they wanted something better. Lots of second-handism. In 2004, he found the tape again and digitized a sample of it, a short one, and put it up on a website with a bunch of other recordings he didn't know about, asking people to ID it. This became a thing on the internet around that time. By 2007, there was entire websites like that, and his sister Lydia also uploaded this sound file to ID. Lydia, in 2021, or wherever, uploaded a raw WAV file version of the entire recording with an annoyingly space-riddled thing. But anyway, it's over 60 megabytes. And uploaded onto Mega Upload and put a link on Reddit. After that, many people tried to clean up the audio so we could hear what was said in the audio recording. We still don't know the lyrics. Clearing up the audio so we could find out that it was a Yamaha DX7 with this particular ROM in it. I mean, that's how precise the data is. The recording was invaluable. I've done a remix and cleanup of it myself to see what I could do. Many, many people have done better. The best one I heard at one time was done by somebody calling himself La Robot, or The Robot. His entire channel is blanked right now, and he made these videos privated but not erased, and I don't know if he was flagged for copyright violation or threatened, because there's no less than 2 sources that are claiming that they created the song. One person, I don't believe at all, that's a professional musician that I think is full of shit. I'm not naming this individual. And another person under a pseudonym that set up a SoundCloud account and decided to say they're the copyright owner, at least type that in, so that they could sell it on the internet. Are they violating any rules? Now, down below, you'll find an August 21st, 2020 version 7 cleanup that was based on a version 4 cleanup from January 17th, 2020, version 4 that was made. And another one before that is the version 2 from August 26th, 2019, all done by La Robot. Now, these are all based on cleaning up that one original file. They're derivational works involving the persons putting an effort to it. Do they own their version of it? I'm sorry, there's hundreds of DJs who are allowed legally to say, I did this under fair use, I made a new recording out of an old recording. Some of them are very little alteration other than cleaning them up. Others are literally adding tape hiss and putting up VHS video effects to create a creative work. So, can you be flagged for any of this? No. Could somebody make a request and that's probably why the videos went unlisted? Yes. The fact that the actual audio recordings are still left up and there's no attempt to hiding says that the request was to take it down from YouTube. Now, it was made in 1984. What time of year is most likely? I need more data. I need to know exactly what model of tape deck. I'm waiting for someone to post that. Next, I'm waiting for Darius to get more specific on it, but we don't know. Next, I hope this has been useful and informative. Next, Can anyone claim ownership of the song? Only the person who originally recorded it, and they'd have to prove they did it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.